Hello, guys. Welcome to another fresh and exciting episode on the show. You guys know I only bring only the best of guests to my show. Today's guest is Dr. Jane Sharp, chiropractor, and functional medicine practitioner who helps women move from chronic health struggles into clarity, structure, and hope. After her own journey through chronic Lyme disease, she brings both clinical expertise and lived experience to her work, grounded in faith and a belief in the body's capacity to heal. She helps women understand what their bodies need in order to restore resilience, while also honoring the real life demands of motherhood, work, and daily life. Dr. Ginger, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm blessed to be here.
Thank you so much. So, I would also like you to introduce yourself to my audience.
Yeah, so like you had said, I am by profession, I'm a chiropractor and I specialize in functional medicine. I myself bring a unique perspective to chronic health because not only do I have professional experience in understanding about how the body works and how to help those that have chronic illness, but I also was chronically ill myself with chronic Lyme disease. And so just having more of an experiential viewpoint through that process. I am also a stay-at-home mom to two beautiful daughters. I homeschool them. They are 12 and they are 14. And so they keep me very busy with homeschooling and all of their activities. And yeah, just a strong we have a member of our church and just a really active member in that church, just trying to know God and make him known.
Thank you so much. So, what would you say to the woman who is lying in bed right now, feeling like she's failing everyone around her?
Yes, the first thing I want to say is just that I see you and I understand and I hear you. I too was in a season of life where, like them, they're wearing all of the hats: the wife, the mom, the I was a chiropractor, a business owner, stay-at-home mom, homeschooling. I was tutoring, and I too felt like every single one of those areas that I was failing. The checklist never got shorter. My energy never replenished. And most nights I collapsed in bed knowing that the people that I loved really deserved more of me. But in that darkness, in the most desperate days of of my chronic illness, God, with his grace and his mercy, opened my eyes to a truth that I still cling and hold on to, and really changed everything for me in the darkness. And that truth was that I was enough. And I never had to be more than what he made me to be. And so, in my weakness, in the breaking, in all that I couldn't do, that all that I really was enough. And there was so much freedom there, so much peace there, and a lot of joy in, even though it was still dark, even though I was still dealing with chronic illness. Um, and that was really the beginning of healing, from the lie that I wasn't enough, that I couldn't heal, that I was being measured by my output, and just really knowing and starting to understand that my value wasn't in what I was producing, but it was in who made me.
All right, thank you so much. So, what scripture has most shaped how you understand the body and healing?
Yeah, God used a lot of scripture during this time of my life. I think the one that I would say was that we are fearfully and wonderfully made in Psalm 139:14, because I think that we are often really quick to think that our bodies are broken, that our bodies are failing us, that where we're at with no energy and the brain fog and no sleeping is just our new normal, and this is just how our life is. And I think that when we take that verse that we're fearfully and wonderfully made, that it helps us to understand that our bodies aren't broken and that they're not failing, that God is not a God of chaos, but he is a God of order, and he's designed our bodies to function and heal with order. And so It's very intentional. It's very specific. And when we work with the blueprint, when we work with the design instead of against it by maybe managing symptoms or masking symptoms or ignoring what your body's trying to tell you, then your body has permission to do what it's always designed to do. And that's really to thrive and to have life and fulfill purpose that he has for you. I think personally, this was a huge aha moment when I understood this, because there was a lot of fear. And I think in chronic illness, there is a lot of fear. And one of the things I feared was that I was just going to be remembered as this mom who was always sick and tired. And I didn't really want to translate that over to my girls as far as them not knowing how fearfully and wonderfully made they were. I also felt like that how could I be the helper that I was supposed to be to my husband when I felt so awful and I could barely function? And so having the scripture and having the truth that we are made so specifically and so intentionally and with such order was really powerful. And when I started doing that, and when I started working with the blueprint and with the design, that's when my health physically started to change and started to respond in ways that it never had before. And so really just showed me that the mess and all of the chaos that I felt like I was experiencing wasn't the problem, but really that the order was the problem, and just owning and understanding the beautiful design of the body.
All right. So, when you were at your worst, what do you wish someone had told your husband?
Uh, yeah, I think that men are wired to fix things, and I love that. It's a beautiful thing, right? You give them any tool, give them the right tool for any assignment, and they're going to solve any problem. But I think the thing I would say is that chronic illness hands them a situation where there is no one tool that exists. And I think that that leaves them feeling very helpless. And that's something that can quietly destroy a marriage, not because there's no love there, but because the stress of that doesn't really leave room for grace or kindness or patience that is needed in a marriage. Um, Both the spouse and the person who is sick needs to have a strong support system around them, because the one that's sick needs room to heal, but the one that's supporting them needs strength to keep standing. So I think that I would say that to get a support system, um, a strong Christian support system around them, to feed into them, to help them to grow deeper in the relationship with the Lord, but also just in patience and understanding and compassion. When I was in the darkest part of the illness, I felt like I was drowning. And I also felt like it was taking my husband down with me, because he could never say a single thing right. And I mean that literally. Like, I would say, okay, I need you to say this, and this is how you're going to say it, and this is the body language that you're going to say it with, and all of that. And then he would, and it still didn't feel like enough. And it took me a long time to finally realize that the Lord, that what I was demanding from my husband was never for him to give me, but it was for the Lord to provide those things for me. And so the moment that I stopped putting that weight on my husband and brought it to the Lord and to God instead, then the tension stopped in our marriage, and that really shifted our marriage for the better. But I would say the one thing, looking back, the greatest gift that Josh gave me was his patience. He let me be angry. He let me be frustrated. There were moments of I was irrational in chronic illness. It doesn't feel good, and so there's irrational moments. And he didn't really fight back. And I believe that the quietness really saved us, because there was no real big battles to come back out and repair. And I look back now and really just thank the Lord for a patient man who stayed.
All right. So, what would you say to the woman who believes slowing down is selfish or falling behind?
Yes, I hear this often. I would almost say daily that I hear this. And I think that this is one of the biggest lies that Satan uses to women to keep them from who God to keep them from doing what God has called them to do, to be helpers, to be servants. We are designed for that, and we have such a heart for that, that I feel like Satan really uses that lie for guilt and shame in that. But the truth is that God calls us to be helpers to our husbands, but also to train our children in the way that they should go, and to be able to respond to the children and to our spouse and to any relationship that we're in. But when we're chronically ill and we have no sleep and we're wired and we're tired and we haven't had a quiet moment with the Lord in weeks, then there's really nothing left to pull from. And so instead of this responding in grace and patience and kindness, we respond reactively. We react. There's a short fuse, and really create an environment around us that doesn't feel safe. So I would say that caring for yourself is not choosing yourself over your family, but it's choosing your family by making sure that the woman who shows up, the mom, the wife, the friend that shows up for them every day, has a light to give, an encouragement to give, the support to give, because you can't pour from an empty cup. And honestly, God never really asks us to do that. And this really hit home for me when my oldest daughter at the time was 4. And I was reacting. She had done something wrong, and I was not responding to her, but I was reacting to her. And I remember looking at her eyes and just how terrified she was. And I asked her, I was like, what is wrong? And she said, you are scaring me. When you yell and you scream, this is like a crazy monster coming out, and I'm terrified. And I was truly heartbroken, not because I was being a bad mom, but because I was so depleted. And they were living with the consequences of the empty cup, right? And really that moment changed the way that I looked at self-care as being selfish, as opposed to self-care being a must-have in order to take care of my family the way that I was called to. So I feel like calling it's selfish to take care of yourself is really an oxymoron, because the most loving thing that I ever did for my family was decide that I too was worth taking care of.
Okay, so what would you say to someone who's afraid to let others see how bad things really are?
Yeah. I think that this is a place that I did it very wrong for too long, because this is where I lived for a long time, where I isolated myself, and I put myself into, because I didn't want everyone to see, oh, she's messy. She doesn't have it together. She doesn't know what she's doing. She's not a good mom. She's not a good this. She's not a good. I was so worried about all of what my mess really looked like that I really isolated myself. And when you isolate, when you pull away, you go silent and you don't let others in, you really hand the enemy the perfect environment to work, because this is where those lies get the loudest. This is where that negative feedback loop runs the longest. And that voice that says, you're not enough, you're not important, you're not significant, you are a mess, becomes really impossible to ignore. So I think that God, he doesn't just suggest community, but he commands it, because he knows that our prayers are more powerful together. Our healing is more powerful there. And even at the cellular level, even just like physiologically, our bodies are designed to need one another, to function together. So I think that we need the support. We need the encouragement. We need you're doing good. You're headed in the right direction. And I think too that all the things that I was worried about, the image and the sense of having it together, they were already gone. But it was actually the community, when I started doing community, that was the thing that helped me to get those things back sooner. So I would say, don't wait until you have it all together to let people in. Let them in now, because that's exactly what people in community are for.
All right, so here is my final question for you. If there's one thing you wish listeners to take away from this conversation, what would you want that to be?
Um, there's so many things. So this is always a hard question, but I would just say, going back to the big thing, the big picture is that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, that you are enough in the illness, you're enough in the healing, and you're enough in every single season in between. So I think just to take one day at a time to show up fully, whatever that looks like for that day, and that trusting exactly that is enough and it's always enough. And that God is a God of healing. He's a God that can be trusted, and we are designed in such a beautiful way for life and for purpose and on purpose.
So much for the wonderful, that was been wonderful good quality on the show. So how can my audience connect with you and learn more about your work?
Yeah, the easiest way is to join my husband and I on our weekly live training that we have. We talk more about restoring energy, clearing brain fog, being able to sleep better, and it's live. So we do a Q&A at the end. And so if you have questions, if you have concerns, you want to get to know us better, this is the best way to do that. And you just go to discoverhealthtraining.com. That's discoverhealthtraining.com. And that's the best way to see us and meet with us personally. Another thing is that I think that a lot of women are such in chronic illness and that they're just kind of really, that they're not sure, that the symptoms that they're having or how they're feeling, is this normal? This is not normal, and all of that. And we've created a quiz, and it helps to kind of gauge where you're at in your health, whether yes, you have chronic illness and there's so much hope and help for you, or hey, you're doing a great job, just keep doing the things that you're doing. And so another way to connect there is at discoverhealthquiz.com, and taking that quiz and just kind of help you kind of identify and see where you're at with your health.
Hi, Dr. Ginger, thank you so much for coming to my show. Thank you for providing value to me and to my audience. I really appreciate you for coming and sharing your perspective and your wisdom with us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.